let's turn our attention to the postseason now. We're going to play a little game of who do you trust and for what, or what role on the pitching side. We'll start with the guys we've talked about as being the locks for the roster and kind of get a feeling for where we are with them right now before we move on to some of the fringier guys who may or may not make the postseason roster. Try to figure out what purpose they might potentially serve. So all you guys need to do is tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much you trust the person I name today and what role you see for them in the postseason, if any. So Paul, let's start with you, because in our group chat you said you're the David Duchovny of this game. So let's go for it and just start with Freddie. So 1 to 10, how much do you trust him, and in what role is he playing?
Well,
I think this is easy.
Yes, he is definitely your number one starter, and we'll start at the first game. But I'm like a 4 on Freddie. And I like Freddie as a regular season pitcher a lot. But honestly, one of Freddie's big issues that I think has always been the case with him is honestly the mental side of pitching. He just, when he's on and when he's driven or whatever, he can put guys away, but he starts nibbling and he seems to stop trusting his own stuff. He's pitched in 6 playoff games. The Brewers have never won any of them. Only 3 of them are starts, and at least one of them was good. But 2 of them were not. He has gotten blown up as a reliever at least once. And I don't like Freddie in high pressure situations. I just don't. So I hope he proves me wrong and shows up and pitches like he has all season in the playoffs. But Freddie is just one of the more likely dominant pitchers in baseball to get you into some trouble, and so I don't trust him very much.
See, I thought I was going to be harsh saying like 7. So, yeah, as in terms of number ones, obviously the Brewers have had better number ones over time here, with both Woodruff and Burns being ahead of him for most of this run. And it was, you felt like, okay, yeah, Freddie is your 3rd starter in a playoff series. That's great. But that didn't actually happen that much because of the injuries, Woodruff going down at the very end of 2023, Corbin Burns being shipped out before 2024. So Freddie has had to sort of be like a load-bearing guy in maybe a way that isn't ideal. But I think that, yeah, he's obviously the number one. You're going to roll him out there in game 1. I wonder how quickly he will get pulled. I think he's the one guy that you can legitimately see Pat Murphy leaving in past, if he's going well, leaving him in to face the order a 3rd time. I wouldn't recommend it in a game that's close.
Yeah.
That's going to make me very nervous in a game that's close. Now, obviously, if they're up 4 or 5 runs or something and you want to send him back out there, the 3rd time through the order and see how long he can go, if he's just, absolutely dealing, that's fine. But you're going to need to have a quick trigger on, well, anybody really. Like these guys, there's nobody here who you're going to trust to like work through a bunch of traffic in sort of the middle innings, right? Like once you get to the middle innings, it's going to be first on danger, maybe even just flipping the lineup over to that 3rd time, they're going to come out. So yeah, it's
5 and die for sure.
Yeah, you would think, unless things are just going really, really well and the score is such that it, you get a little bit of wiggle room. But even there, it's like, no. If we get 5 good innings from Freddie Peralta, that's probably going to be enough, kind of regardless of the circumstances, right?
Yeah. And
yes, please.
Yeah. I will say that this feels a little bit better than last year when we were doing this playoff preview, and I was of the opinion if anybody pitches more than 4 innings, Pat Murphy needs to be fired into the sun. Like that was the state of the pitching staff last year, so I feel slightly better this year. Let's move to Quinn Priester next. As I mentioned, I feel solid about him, but also, Paul, I don't know how deep are you willing to roll with Quinn Priester in a postseason game?
So pretty deep. Trusting Quinn Priester is a 1-year sample thing. Freddie, we have a lot of. We've had a lot of Freddie in our lifetimes. We know what Freddie is. It'll be interesting to see Priester up against like playoff caliber lineups for a whole high pressure series. I mean, it's 2 starts, but 2 starts max. So, but I trust him pretty well because I think I understand what he is, and I think the team will make smart decisions with him. So I trust him more than Freddie, but I do think it's worth noting, like, this is not the Burns, Woodruff, Freddie lineup of the past, which Ryan mentioned. And so it's, to the extent the Brewers have a weakness, this is probably it. So Priester, I'll put like a 7 on. I trust him. I do. I think he has the capability to get pretty far into a game. I like how one thing I don't like about Freddie is he does tend to be more of a fly ball pitcher, and that can work, but it can also burn you depending on how the wind is blowing on any given day. And I like Priester to limit damage and keep things under control better than Freddie, so I'll give him a little higher grade, but still not super great. So 7 on Priester. I will happily pick the Brewers in the game he starts, but it's not like a 9 or a 10.
Yeah, I think kind of in that same range. I would say like a 7. Him and Freddie, I view as pretty similar at this point, like as it is today. Obviously, Freddie has a much longer pedigree and all that, but yeah, I'm looking at just sort of like with Priester. With Freddie, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to maximize the outfield and make sure that you have your best defensive outfield. We have a question coming up about that, so we can get back to that later. But with Priester, because his ground ball rate is so good, he's 93rd percentile. He gets 55.7% of balls on the ground.
That's wild these days.
It is.
Yeah, he really, really, really gets ground balls. So you are absolutely going to, like, in that game, if there's any thought of like Monasterio coming in and playing for Ortiz, you don't do it in that game. At least not while Priester's in there. You want Joey Ortiz as your shortstop in that game, right? So you're going to want to maximize the infield defense for the Quinn Priester start and maximize the outfield defense for the Freddie start. And then you could kind of go from there, right?
Obviously, top 2 guys in the rotation seem pretty obvious. It gets a little iffier when we're talking about who starts a game 3. So we'll put the rest of those starters on the back burner for now and jump to the front line bullpen guys. Let's do Abner. So how much, Paul, do you trust, speaking of the mental pitching game, do you trust Abner or Uribe in a tight postseason game?
Like an 8. Throwing 100 will get you far, but it's not a 10, and it could be. But Abner has a history of punching people, I guess is the best way to see it, and closers are a weird breed, so it's not unusual for a closer to be a little weird. And Abner has held up great, no complaints there. But it's like an 8. I could see him having a mental blow up if some weird thing goes wrong. Stupid bad umpiring, stupid error behind him, whatever. But probably not. Probably okay. Trust Abner a lot. Very into Abner. An 8, maybe an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm on his StatCast page because I was just over on Quinn, so I figured to pop over to him. Man, does he have a lot of 95s, 91, 98, 96, 92, 92.
He's awesome.
But then there is, the chase rate is actually not what you'd expect. It's just slightly below average, 47th percentile. Walk rate, 30th percentile, which that's part of the deal with Abner. He's kind of a classic relief pitcher where he's going to walk some guys, and that's part of the deal. And then extension down at the bottom is also around 50th percentile. But he's really, really good. You do worry. He sometimes can get himself into some trouble with walks, and he has been a pretty chill presence on the mound this year. We haven't really seen him have like a blow up in terms of like him losing control the way that we saw last year. Or
that's true.
Yeah, we haven't really seen that this year. He seems to be more of a chill presence this year, and he's the best Brewers reliever that's out there. I don't know that he will necessarily have just the 9th inning. They have been moving them around a little bit. I know Koenig has been pitching some in the 9th, depending, I think, on matchups. But Uribe is definitely a guy. He is one of the guys that you are going to turn to shut down a game that you are leading late in, the last like 3 innings somewhere. He could pop up in the 7th, but he could also pop up in the 9th. It just sort of, I think, depending on where it makes sense to deploy him, where it makes most sense is where they'll deploy him.
How about Ryan's personal favorite, Aaron Ashby, and Pat Murphy's personal favorite, Aaron Ashby? I guess, Paul, how much do you trust him, and how much is he going to get used with all these hot days in a playoff series?
I mean, joking aside, I trust Aaron Ashby a lot. He's had a phenomenal year, and So his elbow might blow up tomorrow, but until it does, he's an extremely effective reliever who is able to go a little bit longer, maybe not the right word, more often than other people. He is especially good in platoon matchups, but he's good generally across the board. And after Abner, like, I actually might trust him next most in the bullpen of current healthy people. He's had a phenomenal season, so I trust Ashby a ton until he dies, basically.
Yeah, I really can't disagree with anything there. He's going to pitch multiple. We're going to see him for multiple up downs because that's what they do, and also because there's so many off days in this first series with a game and then an off day, a game and an off day. Like, they're going to turn to Aaron Ashby as often as they possibly can, and frankly, that's what he is for this purpose. You just would have liked to have seen him used a little bit less over the course of the regular season, so you'd feel better about it now. But yeah, this is what this is for, is to have him throw a bunch in the postseason. And speaking of ground ball rates, 61.5%. He
really good.
Yeah. Really good.
I'll put an 8 on him too, same as Abner. He's good.
Yep.
I trust him a ton.
But we have seen some, with both of those guys, we have seen some questions late. They haven't been quite as sharp down the stretch over the last 2 weeks as they had been. We really haven't seen Abner hardly at all. Abner's just not really been pitching, and we know that there was something. We don't know what, but we know it was mentioned on the national broadcast that he has been dealing with something. We don't know what, though. So there's that as well, that it knocks the trust down just a little bit, because you're like, at any moment something could happen with these guys, with how much Ashby's been used, with how much Abner's been used. Has pitched up near the top in the number of games, and that's with not really getting used that heavily down the stretch at all. He's still up at one point he was in the top 5 in terms of games pitched. I'm sure that's come down now, but it's Pat Murphy rides his best relievers hard, but we've talked about that enough.
Next up, how about Jared Koenig? We talked about him briefly. Outside of Ashby, has typically been one of Murph's favorite toys in the last couple of years as well. Paul, where do you want to see Jared Koenig pitch? How much do you trust him?
I like Jared Koenig. I think he is a tier below the Abner, McGill, and Ashby line of pitchers. You can get to him for sure. He is not unhittable, unlike everybody else. He is much better against lefties, as you'd expect, than righties. So against lefties, he is death, but righties can get to him. But I like that he can go a little bit more distance if you need to eat up a couple of innings. If a starter blows up, if a starter can't get through their first 2 times in the order like they're supposed to, Koenig is invaluable to have around as one of the bridge guys. He's more like a 6.5, 7 for me. He is good but not great, and so as a guy to pitch the 5th through 7th ish innings in the playoffs, I'm totally fine with that.
Yep, I would echo all of that down the line, but I do want to note that he has been on an absolute heater. Since he gave up 2 runs against the Diamondbacks, because of course it was the Diamondbacks, on August 26th, he has gotten into 10 games here, and he has a 0 ERA, a 0.87 FIP. He has 17 strikeouts and 1 walk and 5 hits allowed over 11 innings pitched. So he's been on an absolute heater. I've said over and over, though, that I still don't really trust him against right-handed power hitters.
Yep.
That would be a thing I would look to try to avoid, try to minimize, especially if he has to throw to one of them, I would like it to be a situation where he does not need to throw them strikes and he can just, dance around the outside of the zone and then go get the next guy who's a lefty. That would be the ideal situation. Depending on which lineups we see in the postseason, hopefully that is a possibility and something that they can do, because when hard pressed, I trust him less. It's more like if Abner and Ashby are 8s, he's more like a 6. Yeah.
Sure. Speaking of maybe some shakier recent performances, at least, Nick Mears been great for much of the year. has had a bit of a rough September here, Paul. How would you handle him in October?
So I don't trust Nick Mears as much as is probably warranted. And that this is not just like last year Nick Mears getting unlucky stink. So he's had a good year generally speaking, but he should be better. Everybody else on the staff is either pretty close to in line with like what their FIP and WHIP would project, or a little bit better than that. Mears is the one that seems to defy that a little bit. I'm not entirely sure why. It's probably just reliever bad luck. Like relievers are volatile. Things sometimes go bad for you. But I would not want to put him in a high leverage situation if it's avoidable. His stuff's really good. I just don't trust him as much as the upper echelon. And even Koenig, I feel like, is just a better pitcher, even if he's not as good a thrower. So for me, Mears is like a 5.5, 6. He's good. On a lot of staffs, he would be an upper echelon guy. But the combination of him underperforming his underlying metrics, plus not being really great lately, has me not trusting him that much. And I would prefer not to see him with the game on the line in any conceivable way.
Yeah, so his role for much of this season was he was the guy that would be brought in to get them out of whatever trouble the starting pitcher got into in the 5th or 6th inning, and his job was to get out of that, right? Like to end that problem. And he did it really, really well. But he got used a lot. This is a recurring theme. Looking at how much he was pitching, that dude was ridden very, very hard. He got into, looks like, 13 games in May. He missed the first couple weeks of the season. Remember, he started off missing the first couple weeks of the season and still managed to get into 11 games in April. Like, he was pitching most days, and he was also occasionally going more than one. He has a couple 2-inning, 1.2 innings. That has stopped. He hasn't gone, well, I guess he did go more than 1 inning against Colorado on June 27th. But I don't think he's done that since. Now,
8-13, 1 1/3 against Pittsburgh, but that was weird.
Yeah, I don't know if I trust him as a fireman though. Like that's part of the thing that I'm wondering here is like that's how Murph was using him, but he hasn't really used him that way lately. So I guess that's fine. But yeah, he's a guy I want you to get in. If you're trying to pitch him against the with holding a tight lead, for God's sake, get him in against the bottom of the order where the hitters aren't as good. I don't really want him seeing the best hitters in the other team's lineup because he has been shaky, and he's also been one of the things that made Nick Mears great this season. He only has for the entire season 13 walks, but he's had 3 of them in the 4 games since he came back. So 3 of his 13 walks that he's had all season have come in the last 4 appearances. So the command has been shakier than whatever. And Spencer talked about this on their podcast and was talking about the fact that like he thinks that this is him being tired is showing up in his performances. So yeah, this is a guy you're going to need to use him probably in some leverage, but use with caution and try to get him against the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah. I have no interest in seeing him against like Kyle Tucker.
No,
thank you.
Don't do that.
No power lefties. All right. Now let's go to sort of the mishmash of other guys, whether it's, your game 3 starter if you need one, or possibly guys who started during the year but could be used in relief in the playoffs. So let's start with Chad Patrick, Paul. Serviceable starter, really solid, old rookie year from him overall. But I don't know if you pitch him in a playoff game. He does have some pitch characteristics that could maybe play up in a long relief role.
Yeah.
I guess, how would you use him, and how much do you trust him in whatever role you see for him?
So this is where it gets tough. And just to give a general answer, after Freddie and Priester, no one should be the third starter. Like, the third starter should be a mishmash of guys tagged together who play off each other well, who don't go far at all. And I think it's going to be more matchup based than anything. And Patrick is, a fine option for this with a short leash. I think I wouldn't do that personally. I think I would probably put him in the pen and let his stuff play up a little bit. Even so, Patrick's had a good year and deserves a lot of praise for being one of their most consistent starters, especially early. I do think he got figured out a little bit. And one of the reasons I trust him a little bit less is his first time through the order isn't great numbers wise. It's not a disaster, but he would occasionally get beat up a little bit. I do think if you put him in the pen and add a couple clicks to his stuff, he might play up a little bit, and that's where I would use him. I would not make him one of the piggyback guys. I would put him in the pen, and if you get into trouble, he's a guy you can bring in, especially if you give him platoon advantage in some capacity, or have him go one a little bit plus. But I don't trust Chad that much. He's a good guy to have on your team, but I don't want him out there in do or die situations either. Like I'd put like a 5 on him, and I'd make him a pen guy, and I would for third starter piggyback other people.
Yeah, so Spencer and I did talk about this when I guested last week on the Brewer Fanatic podcast, and his stuff really did play up in the bullpen when he was going for one inning. We've seen it now. His stuff did play up. There was those couple clicks you're talking about.
I totally am. Yeah.
And so that, to me, I think that could be a really valuable role for him, is going that one inning. Do they have the luxury to be able to afford that, or do they need him to go longer? Is the question. Do they need to try to get more innings out of him, or can they make him? Because if they did that, I think I would be perfectly fine with him pitching in the 6th or 7th inning of a 1-run game where you're trying to hold the lead. I think I would be perfectly okay with him coming in if the plan was to use him for 1 inning and let him just let it loose and let it go. But I don't know if they have that luxury. So this is going to be fascinating. He's one of the first things I want to see. How are they deploying Chad Patrick? I want to know what the plan is there and what they want to do with him, because I think it's going to make a big difference in what we end up seeing from him. And from the Brewers pitching staff, is how they choose to use him and what his effectiveness is. He's like a sneaky sort of like, he's going to determine a lot about how this postseason goes, I think, because he's going to have to pitch. The question is in what role and all of that. So I'm very interested to see how they use Chad Patrick.
He could definitely be a very valuable weapon, because as you mentioned, he could be anything between 1 inning in the 7th to 3 innings after a short start from somebody else. He's sort of the Swiss Army knife of this whole group here, and I'll be interested to see how they use them. I guess in a similar vein, Tobias Myers, Paul. I know you've mentioned maybe liking him as a Game 3 starter in the past, or he's sort of in that equation of mixing and matching those guys. He's been solid this year too when Murph has actually used him.
Yeah, I trust him more than Murphy does. So that's definitely true. I think he should be in the mix for a piggyback kind of thing. Honestly, he's actually had a pretty good year when he's actually pitched games. It's not like great, like he's not Freddie, not close to that, but like he's been pretty reliable numbers wise. He is not a big platoon split guy, so if you need a guy to work against a mixed lineup, he's not a bad guy to have. There is of course risk with Tobias. He's not, he is definitely a lower tiered starter than or reliever. But he's solid enough that I think he should be in the mix for stuff, but I don't trust him that much. Like I'm under no delusions that he's some great guy, and he can occasionally get himself in trouble. He can be a little bit homer prone once in a while. But if you like, I would probably have him on the roster, and I would have him as one of the piggyback guys. Like if you need somebody to go, 2-2 or 3-2 to start the game, or 3-3 to start the game, he's going to be one of your better options, especially piggybacking off of a lefty. So that's how I would use him, but I don't trust him that much. I trust him like a 4 or 5. So that's Tobias.
Yep, I agree with all of that. He has been sneaky good down the stretch. Again,
Yes, yes. He actually hasn't given up that many runs lately. He's been pretty clean for the most part.
Yeah, going back to that Diamondback series, he did have the last time he gave up multiple runs in any outing was on the 26th of August against the Diamondbacks. Since then, he's given up only 3 runs, and he has 3 runs over 16.2 innings. That's a 1.62 ERA, but the FIP is 3.56 because it's only a 9-3 strikeout to walk ratio.
His strikeouts are down this year. That's my biggest Tobias thing. Is I kind of get you, Pat, on that. It's down 1.5 strikeouts per 9, which is not good.
Yeah, and the reason that he initially, Pat lost trust in him early because he was walking too many guys. He actually fixed that, and that hasn't really been much of an issue since that initial stint when we saw him in, May, when he came back from that injury because he started the year on the IL, and then he came back and there was something not right about him because he was walking too many guys, which was definitely something he didn't do last year. So I get why Murphy lost trust in him at that point, but he's even talked about the fact that I need to trust Tobias. I need to remember Tobias Myers is a pretty good pitcher. And it's
right.
Yeah, Pat,
Yeah.
you do need to remember that. But again, he's not a guy I don't want him seeing a lineup probably about once through, unless he comes, say he comes in to face the 7 hitter or something, maybe then you roll it through for one time through. But I don't want him facing good hitters more than once. So that's probably, you get 2 innings, maybe if he's really not set him up, knocking him down, maybe you get through 3 and change or something. But yeah, it's a guy that he's going to pitch. You're going to need him, especially if you go. He's more of a guy that maybe you don't see. He'll pitch probably in the division series, but he becomes more important if you move on to the championship series and you're trying to cover more innings, right? The number of innings you have to cover and the number of off days then really drops. You don't get the same crazy amount of off days that you get then. So trust him, but only to a point. So 4 or 5, I'm with you on that, Paul.
Mm-hmm. That new split change he's throwing this year could be an interesting weapon out of a bullpen too in a short stint as well. And he's throwing it for strikes. So that is a great add. So even if the strikeout numbers are down, he's been inducing weaker contact. He's found a different way to pitch too, which is good to see. Let's move on to Miz. Obviously, very few guys with better stuff. He could get any batter out. He could also walk any batter or give up a home run to any batter. So, Paul, tricky thing here. How do you handle him in the postseason? We did see, as I mentioned on Saturday, him piggyback with Gasser a little bit just to kind of dip the toe in the water there. How interested are you in that as a strategy for Miz, or would you just use him in shorter stints?
If I was running things, I'm not sure I have Miz on the postseason roster personally.
Really?
Because I trust him at about a 1. And the last thing that Miz needs is playoff pressure impacting his already extremely spotty command. So I don't if he's on the roster for me, he is mop-up duty. If I'm trying to leverage his 102-mile-an-hour stuff in relief in a high-leverage situation, I have screwed up. I have used too many of my other pitchers. I do not trust him at all. I am not interested in Jacob Misiorowski as a postseason pitcher at this moment. Go fix your command for a year. Come back next year. Let's see how you do. I don't want him in the playoffs.
But he's an all-star, Paul.
Yes, he is.
This is a tough one. I was glad that they got him into the game last night with the bases loaded because I wanted to see how he would react to that. And it was weird, right? Because he actually did. He threw fine. He got the first batter to put a bad swing on the ball, but he happened to reach on that swinging bunt. And then so after that, he did walk a guy, which is something you're just going to have with Miz. And so he walked in a run there and then gave up. I was listening to the game. I wasn't watching it. It was a Texas leaguer. It sounded like was the one that brought in the 3 runs and really opened the game up and gave them that win. I don't know what to do with Mizrowski. What I could say is I don't want him pitching high leverage late in games. I know that. I don't want him anywhere near there. I think he's going to be on the roster. I think that's probably going to happen. Maybe not in the first round. That could be a thing where they don't have him on the roster in the first round, but I could see him being a guy that, like, let's say somebody like DL Hall is a thing. If DL Hall, if they feel good about where he's at and they want to have him come in for the first like 2 or 3 innings, I could see following with Jacob Mizorowski. The way we talked about Myers could also be a guy that would do that. You could piggyback.
I would trust
those.
Tobias Myers a billion times more than Miz in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's the blow up possibility for Miz is there. You're running the risk of a blow up, but Miz can also shut down guys the way that like Myers doesn't shut down guys. He's not going to go out and rack up a bunch of strikeouts and just like clown hitters and dominate them. So it's tricky. I don't know. I don't trust him at this point. It's like a 2 or a 3, but the upside is undeniable. If he's right and if it's working, he could shut down any hitters in baseball. Like he can absolutely filthy dominate people. We saw it. But we should also mention, like, he is now well past any amount of innings he's ever thrown in his life before in a season.
Right.
So fatigue is probably a thing here. Something like that. He hasn't looked like the same pitcher since he came back from that injury.
Nope.
Like that's 100% true. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know what you do with Mizrowski.
All right, because this is running a little bit long, I'm going to lump the next guys into like a bucket of may or may not even make a series roster, but would you care if they were used or not? So we got Rob Zastryzny, Grant Anderson, Robert Gasser, who has been, throwing since coming back, and then Ryan's other favorite, Eric Fetty. So, Paul, do you see any of those guys making the LDS roster and being used at all, or are they sort of like break glass in case of emergency pitchers?
I think more of that. Grant Anderson has had a sneaky great year as a guy who can go multiple innings if you need him to, but nobody trusts his stuff on the team or here, I don't think. And so he's very much if a starter or a long guy gets hurt, then you have to get him. That's fine. Zastryzny is a good loogie. It's just that they're not, because of the rules around having to stay in, it depends on the team you're facing. If you have a really lefty-heavy lineup, he can be very, very helpful. If not, then not. So maybe a sneaky kind of good, like a lot of Brewers pitchers, also pretty good. But I don't. I kind of doubt it. I got to see a little bit more from Robert before I put him on. But if they're feeling good about him, could be a sneaky weapon. I'm just not really sure. And I'm interested to hear Ryan on Eric Fetty, who apparently has learned some new tricks upon joining the Brewers. But I don't trust him that much either, because the sum total of his year so far isn't as good as anything I've seen out of him here. So that's my read on those 4.
Yeah, working backwards. So Fetty is interesting in that he has learned new tricks. He is showing something that we hadn't seen from him before, but I still don't know how much I actually trust it. And I think anything other than mop up and maybe he is a guy that you put on the postseason roster so that if you are losing, say, a game and you're down big and you just want somebody to give the rest of the bullpen the rest of the night off, okay, Eric Fetty, go out and give us 3 innings or whatever and give the bullpen the rest of the night off. That's about as far as I would trust him. So that's a pretty low, it's like a 2 or something. Like, it's pretty low. Gasser, we just haven't seen enough of him yet for me to have a really good read on what he is. I think I'm just going to have to kind of go with it. It wouldn't shock me if he was out there starting like game 3. That wouldn't like stun me or anything. But I also, any leash he would have would be extremely short. Zastryzny and Anderson are not guys. They're guys that I'm fine with, like, facing, maybe some usage in the regular season where it's leverage when you've got a tired bullpen and whatever. In the postseason, those are not guys you want facing leverage at all. I don't think there's really no case where I'm going to be like happy to see Rob Zastryzny in a 1-run game. Like that would just, I can't imagine that. They probably do. They probably make the roster, right? But like they're not leverage guys, so I don't know what like the use is. They're real interesting swing ones, and they're gonna a lot is I think going to depend on these next guys because we got to talk about the injured guys, right? So
yep,
let's do that.
Real quick, handful of guys working their way back from injuries. We've got Jose Quintana, who threw 3 simulated innings on September 26th. Extended mound session in 4 days. So he's not going to be back right now today, but he may be back in time to be on the NLDS roster. Trevor McGill aims to come off the injured list to pitch in the regular season finale. This is what I was talking about when I was like sort of spring training schedule a guy to pitch just to get him into a game. So McGill has said for a long time he was just landing on the DL or IL to get ready for the postseason, get some rest. Hopefully that's the case. And then we've got DL Hall, who rejoined the Brewers over the weekend and is ready and hoping to pitch in the regular season finale as well. So, Paul, of those 3 guys, how do you see them being used?
Entirely dependent. So, first of all, if McGill can throw, yay. Get him back in. He is great. If he is back to normal, that would be great. And slides right back in. I don't know if they make him, closer again. Closer politics are always weird. You never know how they're going to work out. When you have 2 of them, sometimes you have 0 of them. But whatever. Trevor McGill throws absolute gas. He is the best bullpen pitcher they have. When he is healthy, get him in there. The other guys are more interesting because I like DL Hall's had a good season. I like him a lot. Jose Quintana, I think, has been very good at being old crafty man in the starting rotation. Neither of them miss bats. And the fundamental problem in the playoffs is the more balls you allow in play, or not even in play, over the fence, the worse it is for you. Like, these are the kinds of pitchers that are absolutely valuable to get through a regular season, but can be death in the playoffs if not managed properly. I'm not even necessarily against like a Quintana very short leash game of 3 like starter piggyback situation, and I do not mind Hall in a piggyback situation at all. It's how he's been used all year. But you got to be really careful with both of them because they do not miss bats. And if you get in trouble with either of them, you could be in a major amount of trouble with both of them.
So all 3 of these guys worry me, and they worry me for one primary reason, and that's Pat Murphy trusts them. He really, really trusts Jose Quintana. He really, really trusts Trevor McGill. And he has weirdly trusted DL Hall more than he should have, I think just because he was putting up really good ERA. Like, he had a really good runs allowed numbers, but the underlying stuff wasn't as good. And so you already hit on all that, though, Paul, like that stuff. So my nightmare is Jose Quintana is starting game 3 of the division series because Pat Murphy trusts him, and he just doesn't have it, and Murphy stays with him too long and doesn't have a quick enough hook on him because we've seen Quintana.
And then you're down 1-2. Yeah,
and then you struggle at that point, and it's potentially a problem. So I worry that Quintana is just going to be I'm giving it to him because he's the veteran guy. I'm worried that Trevor McGill is going to come in the 7th, 8th, possibly the 9th inning of like game 1 of the division series. And
4-out save. Let's go.
He's going to be throwing 95 miles an hour. And if he's out there throwing 95 miles an hour, I'm instantly going to be like, oh crap, we're cooked because he has to be throwing 99, 100.
He does.
And there was talk of his last bullpen, and it's a bullpen, so you can't take anything ironclad away from this, but I heard he was throwing like 95 in the last bullpen. Was the talk that was going around. So, if that's true, and Murphy trusts him to have high leverage late with diminished stuff, oh crap, that could be a real problem. And then DL Hall, if Murphy trusts him and thinks that it's fine and like he wants to go with him, and it's not warranted, that could also be a problem. Though I worry more about the other 2 if they're not right, because Murphy likes them and he could default to them. So I'm worried about them. If McGill is throwing 98 to 100, great, fine. Then okay, like have at it. Like, yeah,
Yep.
he can pitch late, probably. I don't know. I don't know how much I'm going to trust his command, regardless, because he does struggle with command too. So that's another thing. So especially with the knuckle curve, like, is he commanding the knuckle curve? If he is, he's real tough to beat. If he's not, you got problems.